Here we go. Another Thursday tournament. $120 buy-in. We're going to have about 16 entries this time, a $1,600 prize pool. It's 20K starting stack. Blinds are 12 minutes. We end up dealing the first table, so I wasn't able to get footage, but I do have 3 good hands that we do have to go over. So let's go over those. We are in middle position, and we look down at pocket sevens. Under the gun had limped, so we're going to raise it on up. We raise it 3.5x the blinds, and 2 other opponents call, and it gets back to our under the gun raiser, and he 3-bets us. And it gets back to us. We think he's a crafty player, and we don't think he's the only type to limp re-raise aces or kings. We think that he can mix it in with some other hands. So because of those reasons, we definitely want to put him to the test with our pocket sevens and narrow this pot down to heads up with our limpers, the 2 limpers to our left. So we think about it for a little while and then rip it all in. The 2 limpers end up folding, and it gets back to him. And he had expressed that he didn't want to rebuy tonight. So this decision is weighing on him a little more, which is another reason why we did it. And he thinks about it for a while and then ends up making the call. He shows us ace 10 off, and we show him pocket sevens. It's a flip. The flop gives him a gutter with king queen, but it also gives us a set of sevens. And we end up holding to the river, end up knocking that player out, and get closer to final table. For our next hand of interest, we are on the button, and we look down at ace queen off. Middle position had limped, and we raise it. The small blind and the big blind and middle position end up calling, so we go 4 ways to a flop, and we flop trips. The small blind, even better, leads out for us and puts some money into the pot. It folds to us, and we just rip it in. We just rip it in and put her to the test. We have the nut trips, and she snap calls and shows us queen 10. We both flop trips, and we end up holding to the river and stack yet another player to get us to final table. I think we're 1 knockout away from final table. And the last hand of interest, we are under the gun +1, and we look down at king queen off. We raise it up, and it folds to the cutoff, who goes all in. The big blind ends up making the call, and we also make the call. The flop comes king 7-5, and we check it through because we're heads up on the side with the big blind player. The turn comes another 7. We check it through on the turn. The river comes another 7, and he leads out into me. And sitting with top pair, top boat at this point, we're not going anywhere. We're considering raising, but we don't think it's really worth it. He shouldn't be betting with much worse, and he'll definitely fold unless he has a 7 or also has a king. So we end up just calling, and he lets us know he had a pocket pair, and we outflop the cutoff, who was also all in, and knock one more player out, and then we go to final table, and that's when the hand histories will take over. Here we go. After we finished dealing the first table, and we had those 3 big hands that got us to where we are now, we're sitting at about 130K. We're about maybe 4 times the nearest stack in size, which is great. And we're sitting final 10? Yeah, we're sitting final 10. First hand of interest, we end up making a raise from +1 with ace 8 of clubs. Blinds are 400, 800. We raise to 2.5K. We get called in 2 spots. The flop comes 3 ace 10, and into the pot of 8K, we bet 3K. Middle position goes all in, and we think about it for a second, and sitting with top pair and a dream, we end up making the call for 11K more. The pot's about 36K all day. Our opponent flips over 5-7 of spades. He has the flush draw and backdoor straight draw. Turn comes a 4 of clubs, giving him a gutter to the 6. River comes a queen of spades, and he makes the flush, and we watch the pot go the other way. Now sitting with about 110K in stack, we look down at queen 10 of diamonds in the small blind. The cutoff raised to 2.5K, and this is one of those hands where I'd rather mix in queen 9, queen 8, jack 9, but this is one of those mix-in hands. So we decide to 3-bet the cutoff, and he thinks about it for a while, ends up making the fold, and shows us ace jack off. Exactly what we want to get to fold there. So it was a good 3-bet by us, and we got it through. After we make the 3-bet with ace 10 of diamonds, blinds go up. The blinds are 500, 1,000. In middle position, we look down at queen jack of diamonds. We raise it to 3K, and we go 4 ways to a flop. The flop comes 10, 9, 6, rainbow. And sitting with 2 overs and open-ended, we decide to bet pot. Also, we have a commanding chip lead. We want to put a lot of pressure on these smaller stacks. They'll think about it and huff and puff and end up making the folds, and we take the pot down. Our stack's about 124K after this pot. Next hand and under the gun, we look down at 7, 8 of hearts. It's a pretty hand. It's a little loose to be raising it from under the gun, but since we have such a commanding chip lead, I decide to make the raise. We raise, and it gets all the way to the big blind, and the big blind shoves it in our face. And sitting with 7-8, we're hoping he just has 2 overs or, an ace X that's lower than ours, and we're in a decent position and to knock him out. And we end up making the call for about 13K more. And he shows us ace 7 of diamonds. One of the worst ones that we could see. It's too bad he has this dominated. Flop comes 5, ace 10, giving him the ace, and our victory is, it's not impossible, but it's improbable. Turn comes a king, river a 6, sealing the deal for our opponent. Now sitting with about 105K. The low jack and cut off limp, and we're in the big blind, and we look down at 5-8 offsuit. We just check our option to see a flop. Flop comes 2, 6, 5, 2 spades. And on that board, it kind of favors us because it's a lot of these low cards. We could already have a straight. There's a lot of, it's good for us. We decide to lead into the pot for 3,200. The low jack folds and the cutoff calls. Pot's about 11K now. The turn comes a 4 of diamonds. Gives us a gutter, and we're still sitting with middle pair, which is pretty good. And we bet 8K. The cutoff calls. Now at this point, I'm a little worried with my hand. River comes a 10 of hearts, and we decide to bet 20K. Deciding to bluff. I want his ace 6s to fold. He thinks about it for a while, and then lets it go, and says good hand, and we take the pot down. Sitting with about 130K now. We raise and take the blinds down a couple of times, and now we're sitting in middle position. Blinds are 1,500, 3,000. In middle position, we raise with king, queen off. Pretty quickly, the hijack shoves, and then the button reshoves for less. And it comes back to us. And after we raise to 10K, there's 30 already in the pot, and then it's 26 more to call. And the total pot would be about 998K. We decide to make the call, knowing that we might be behind to one of the players, but the hijack is a little bit looser, and we could get away with calling a little bit lighter. Against certain players, this would definitely just be a fold. We table our cards. The hijack shows jack 10 of hearts, and the button shows ace king off. We're behind to the shorter stack, which is good. He only had about 13K more, and we're ahead of the hijack, which is good for us. The flop comes 2, 10, 4, and jack 10 outflops both of us. The turn, however, outturns jack 10 and gives both me and the ace king off top pair. River, deuce of clubs, and we end up taking the side pot, and the main goes the other way. We lost about 10K in that pot, which isn't too bad. However, we knocked out the one player, bringing us down to final 6. A few hands later, we end up getting it in with a premium, queen 7 off, against jack king off. Flop gives us a 7, and we hold and take another player out. We're final 5. A few hands later, we look down at ace jack of clubs on the small blind. Poker Mom, sitting on the button, goes all in for 41K. And with ace jack of clubs, I'm sorry, but we're just going to have to go with it here. We have a pretty good chip lead still, 2-1. So we end up calling her, and she tables pocket jacks and has us crushed. I knew she could have a good hand, but jacks is pretty bad for us. The flop comes 2 clubs and gives us a lot more life to our hand. The turn gives us the lead with the ace of hearts. And the river, we smash the river and hit the 3 of clubs for the nut flush and knock out Poker Mom. Now sitting with about 134K, we're final 4. We end up raising the button and put the big blind all in. He's been trying to get on the vlog all night, and we can finally make his dream come true. And he shows us 6-7 off. And with Queen Jack off, we have the lead.
Oh, come on, Dan, for the vlog. Check.
The flop gives him open-ended. The turn gives us open-ended. And the river gives us queen high for the victory. We make sure to congratulate him on being the bubble boy. Bubble boy! Now sitting with about 161, we're final 3. We look down at a couple of good hands, raise, and take the blinds down. And just like that, we talk a chop deal, and we get the lion's share of the tournament tonight. We plugged it into the ICMizer calculator, and at the end of the night, first paid $590, second paid $545, and third paid $465. So we got $590 out of the chop deal, and overall, I felt pretty good. I was hitting cards when I needed to, which is always great, getting good hands and holding when I needed to. Let me know if you enjoy these short field tournaments and styles. We definitely have a lot of those happening around here. Like and subscribe if you want to see more. Up next, we're going to be going back to Turning Stone for a $175 buy-in bounty tournament. It's a $50 bounty, and Quincy and I are going to be hitting it up and, showing you how Ladder Up Poker gets it done. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys over there.